Hey, so I've been seeing some people having a little bit of trouble with the motion tracking tutorial because they're not moving the camera around. They're just kind of rotating it, which makes sense because Blender needs location data in order to extrapolate, the parallax between all the points. That said, if you're just trying to track the rotation data, that's actually really really easy. And I used to do that in like After Effects, and then I'd render out with a static camera in Blender, and I'd motion track it in After Effects. And it turns out it's so easy it's easier to track it in Blender than it is After Effects. So I thought I would just go through how to do that. So I'm gonna open up a motion tracking workspace here and load in the footage. Make sure I've got the right frame rate. Set the scene frames and prefetch, which takes a little bit. You don't have to prefetch; it just makes everything run a little bit faster. And so we're going to be in a situation where the more data we feed Blender, the better the results are. But we can get a lot with very little. So I'm going to just control-click to get a point right there, and click Track Forwards. And look at that. It tracks the whole thing, and I can just go into Solve, tell it it's a tripod track, and click Solve Camera Motion. And click Set Up Tracking Scene, and it's there. It's doing it. Of course, because we only have one point, it only knows, it's only locking that one point down in the background. It has no idea about like the focal length of the lens or the rotation if the camera's rotating like that. But if like your camera's already mounted on a tripod and so it's just wiggling up and down a little bit or just tilting around, you could literally just use that, which is really fun. But let's give it a little bit more to go off of. So I'm just gonna click on some trackable points here. The branches are blowing around, but I think it shouldn't be too big of an issue. And this is going to be a little bit of overkill, but let's see. I'm going to hit escape, add a couple more points here. The tree lines are great sources of tracking points. And the reason I'm doing so many is because I want Blender to have enough so that it can actually extrapolate what the focal length is, and it does that basically by comparing the motion of how these points move towards the edge by how they're moving around towards the center. Or at least, I guess, I don't know that's what it's doing. That's what I assume it's doing. It would make sense. So we've got all these points. They all look pretty good here. So I'm going to tell it to refine focal length in K1 and K2, the lens distortion. Solve camera. Got a nice little number there, so it should be looking pretty good. We can't do what we do in the 3D tracks, which is where we select 3 points and then click floor. In fact, it doesn't even give us that option when a tripod's selected, and that's because Blender has no idea where these points are in 3D space. But that doesn't really matter because we're just going to go into layout here, and our camera has the motion. You'll notice it's not actually moving anywhere, it's just rotating just how we want it. So I'm going to go into camera view, and I'm just going to position this by hand. Here we go. Yeah. And you'll see that just works. It just adds whatever rotation you just did on top of the tracking footage, which is very fun. So that could be the end of the breakdown, but I'm just gonna keep going. So if you wanna hang out, let's add a little, make it like a spaceship landing type situation. And hopefully I don't trip over my feet here. I'm going to create a new plane for superstitious reasons. And I'm going to create, let's jump into cycles. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to sample just some of this grass from nearby. And yeah, there we go. If you're ever trying to... Woo, this looks bad. Is it? Oh, it's because here, let's click overlays. There we go. If you're ever trying to match the lighting of a scene really quickly, you can do this kind of cheat where you'll notice the horizon is basically the midway through the shot here, which means if we took this image and wrapped it just around the entire environment on the environment sphere, we'd get kind of the skylight coming from the top and this green light coming from the bottom. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create an environment texture, and I'm gonna load in this, and you'll see green down below, sky up above, and it kind of just gives you just right off the bat something that could work okay. A lot of times if you supplement it with like a sun lamp or something, that can work really well too. So this is where maybe I'll start to hit a wall, because I'm going to try to set this up as a shadow catcher. So in the object properties, going to go down to visibility and just check shadow catcher. And what it does by default is it renders alpha 0, which in this case is the background here. It's just rendering a hole. But if we go into the render properties and under film check transparent, I don't know. For some reason it just works now, which is great. It's giving us this shadow, but also showing us the environment. So that's great. So I'm gonna go to the ending here, set a location, and I'm gonna go put the cube up here too, and maybe, yeah, add another keyframe right there. This will be a very bad, it's like a bad spaceship landing. You notice it kind of accelerates into its movement up there. So I'm going to right click and just on just that one keyframe and go interpolation linear, so it'll start at a speed. Woo! It's lagging a little bit because I don't think it's prefetched anymore. Ooh, that's ugly. It doesn't really matter at all, but let me just alt click on this whole row and say automatic. Yeah. Okay, well for some reason these is making. Okay, well that makes sense, but just okay, ignore that. That's fine. Okay, so in rendered view, it's still working okay. If we turn on this, let's put this branch back in front of here, and it's going to be a little bit funky because anytime anybody who's ever tried this type of compositing before, you'll notice like when things get a little bit overexposed and they get out of focus, the exposure actually eats into the branch, and so you kind of lose some data sometimes that you can't get back. And so it's really hard to get this without like a little bit of a white fringe around it. But let's see what we can do. I'm going to stick a plane up here in the foreground, and we're going to give it the material of this background. So let's go new emission. Yeah, make it an image texture, load in our footage, give it enough frames, this is important, auto refresh, and make the vector window. And cool, so we got that. It's a different color, and that's because of color space. Right now this is just the raw video, but this video plane is being run through Blunder's internal color space. So if we open up color management here and change the filmic to standard, there we go, that works better. So I'm gonna open up here, let's call this material branch, and open up the compositor over here, and oh, not the compositor, the shader editor. There we go. So right now it's just an emission surface. I'm gonna add in a transparent and a mix shader, and we're gonna say what defines whether it's transparent or an emission shader is the video itself. And that's basically, imagines a black and white video, and like the black is, yeah, and the more black it is, the more it's just an emission shader, and the whiter stuff is transparent. And we can dial that in if we plug in a color ramp here. So we can say like, hey, this is totally transparent, and this is, yeah, there we go. That doesn't look too bad. I really enjoyed compositing in the viewport. It just saves a lot of time. So yeah, there we go. You've got your little cube coming in for a landing. If this were a cool spaceship model or something, this would be kind of fun. Yeah. All right, yeah, that's it.